Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sam Gallagher, and if I've done the editing right, you'll be able to see that I am joined by more than just my brother, Ben. Hello,
Hey,
Ben.
hello, welcome. Sorry, that was my cue into the show. I am, of course, here as usual. And with us, we have an extra special guest, don't we, Sam?
Yes, we sure do. We are joined by, as the internet calls him, the Forge Temple. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello guys, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's if you, I guess we'll sort of do this in a funny order. If you don't know, dear listener or viewer, or however you're consuming our dulcet tones, the Forge Temple's stuff on Instagram is super awesome, and we'll be showing some pictures very shortly as we get on to the main content of this episode. But of course, the most important thing, and in any Gondor Calls for Ale episode, is the beer. So Ben, you want to start us off? What are we drinking?
Well, it is a little early where I am, Sam, to be drinking beer. So I have fortified my morning coffee with something extra special. As always, Sam, extra special drinks for extra special episodes. It is an extra special episode. So I have fortified my drink with a little bit of Huron's whiskey, because was it not said unto Huron that the greatest of all battles are not fought with swords, but with strength of spirit? So I have strong spirits to fight my battles with today.
Very good. I like it.
What about you guys? Anyone else got a particularly entertaining drink to share with us today?
Yes, I'm having an Arvedui Pale Ale. It's so good that you want to get another, but unfortunately, this is the last one.
Oh, that's so good. That's excellent. Well, also because of the time of day, I'm having myself a Bill's Pony Porter. This porter pairs perfectly with, or is the perfect drink for any fellowship, and pairs perfectly with second breakfast. See, it's the breakfast drinks, we know what we're talking about here.
Beer with second breakfast, that sounds great.
Right. Yeah, it's more accurately first breakfast perhaps, but that's fine. Ben, do you want to tell our viewers, our listeners, our adoring fans what this episode's about? We're veering from our tried and true method into something.
Yeah, well, as I said, it is every episode is a special episode to me, Sam, but this one is extra special because instead of doing some battle reports, we are going to be chatting about some hobby projects with one of the most amazing converters in the Lord of the Rings scene, I think.
Yeah.
Like, if I want inspiration for cool armies, not that I look at green stuff and go, well, that's intimidating, and then go back to my painting, honestly, but it is very inspiring. So we're going to be hearing some really cool hobby tales today. How it's done, behind the curtain a little bit, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think we can just sort of get into it and ask, what got you into the Middle-earth strategy battle game? Is this a game that you played when you were younger? Did you rediscover it? Did you just, what was your path to this glorious game?
Well, I was introduced to Lord of the Rings stuff by my grandfather. Should I do some introduction first? Some real world things? Oh yeah. Okay. So my real world name is Hauke, which is always a bit tricky to pronounce for English speaking folks. But you can call me Hawk or whatever. But I'm turning 34 next week. I'm a primary school teacher from Kiel, which is one of the northernmost cities in Germany. And I'm married, no kids yet, but that is about to change in less than a month. So I'm excited to see how much or how little hobby time will be left with these new arrangements. Yeah. But yeah, as I said, my grandfather got me into Lord of the Rings. He used to read like fairy tales to my little brother and I, and then started with Lord of the Rings, and it must have been around the same time that the Peter Jackson movies came into the cinemas, so 2001, sometime around that, and I had seen the first and the second movie, I think, and then I came across these little figurines in, I don't know when it was. I think we were at a party of my parents, or friends of my parents, and they had two boys, and one of them had like little Minas Tirith warriors, and I was flashed. I couldn't believe my eyes, and those were the guys that I had heard about and maybe seen about. Maybe it was after the third movie or slightly before, I can't quite remember. And I immediately knew I had to get some of these guys because I was doing Lord of the Rings stuff with Lego, and so before that, and I've always really enjoyed world building, like even with the Lego kids, like build it like it looks on the packaging once, then tear it apart and build something new. And I just knew I had to get into this Lord of the Rings hobby. Yes, and it escalated not quite as quickly as it does today, because when you're a kid with no money, then it's hard to let something escalate. But it went on from there.
That is the like, it's both awesome and terrible about being an adult in these hobbies, is like, because I remember as a kid you're like, oh, I really wanted this, but like, you know, you're saving up the small amount of money you have, and now it's just like, oh sure, I can buy that, like new army, like, oh okay, so you end up with a lot more of it, which is good and bad. That's super cool. I
once saw this graph, like, where you have no money but all of the time in the world, and you have no time but the money to buy everything, and there's like one spot where these two lines meet. And for me that was like 3 or 4 years ago when I was at university and I had to do virtually nothing and I had all the hobby time in the world. That was great, but I can't complain. It's still
can't
very
live in
good.
that spot forever, right?
No.
So obviously introduced by the noble warriors of Minas Tirith, perhaps. Do you have a favorite faction? Are you a primarily good or evil player collector, or are you equal opportunist?
Well, I've always had a thing for the not so well explained and fleshed out aspects of the Tolkien lore, so I've really enjoyed these vague tales of the Witch King of Angmar and Arnor as we had it, and I think Angmar is my favorite faction, lore wise, and I really enjoy their playstyle as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Arnor, we're gonna see if I can use the magic of technology correctly this time, and move over. So this was so if you're listening, we've just pulled up a picture of a fantastically converted Arnor Knight, using the Get Off the Road Ringwraith's horse, and plenty of other bits and a lot of sculpting. And I think you posted this like a couple days ago, maybe. After GW released that Arnor was getting some new models, and this guy is awesome.
So did you see that Games Workshop was releasing Arnor Knights and like convert this guy up, or was this just a cool hobby project that you were working on and then Games Workshop coincidentally released Arnor?
A bit of both, I think. This is another thing that when I was a kid I couldn't have dreamt having an Arnor army, because every 3 guys were so expensive. And now that I have the ability to get one or to buy or build one, I wanted to really flesh out every single guy. And I started with this, and I had no idea that something was going to be released. And I was thinking about, maybe I can build a cavalry or like mounted rangers or something, and then use them in another army. But I held off because I thought, I have so little time and I don't want to do something that I can't use in a game. And then the release or the preview came, and I was like, all right, now I have the excuse to make something like this. And I had the parts and I just went with it and I really enjoyed it. So I think I started converting this guy at the evening after. So over the day maybe the preview came out, and then in the evening I sat down and pushed aside the 65 Goblin Town goblins that I am painting currently.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's so freaking cool. I love it. I do. That's. So I guess that sort of leads us into another question I had, which was like, because you mentioned this Goblin Town army you're currently working on. Do you tend, when you start a new army, because that's the other super impressive thing, is the number of awesome, both with a lot of conversions and beautifully painted armies that you produce. Do you tend to pick one or pick an army because of the rules, because of a hobby idea, or are you just like, I'm going to this event in X amount of time, I want to bring something I haven't brought before, or is it just sort of a combination of the lot?
Well, it started out very innocently, where I was just choosing things if they looked cool, or if they had like beautiful models, and maybe a lot of that was influenced by nostalgia. So I started with Quest of the Ringbearer because it was an excellent excuse to buy all these single miniatures like Goldberry and the Black Riders and Tom Bombadil and stuff like that you would never use in a game, but it was excellent because I could never afford these as a kid. And then I attended my first events and I figured out how to not be a totally horrible general. And now my picking of armies is very much influenced by how I think the army is going to perform on the field. And yeah, I think it's a lot of different factors. Sometimes I just bring something because I really want to paint the models, and then I tell myself, well, if you lose 3 games in a 3-day tournament, that's fine, but at least you have these models on your shelf now. And sometimes it's all about clearing that backlog that you have and these drawers full of models. And I'm going to an awesome, I hope, I've heard it's awesome from the past years, event in 2 weeks, where you play 5 games of 500 points on the Saturday and then 2 games of 800 points on Sunday. And the 2 scenarios that you play on Sunday are Retrieval and Command the Battlefield. And with 800 points to go for, I thought there's never going to be another opportunity to play Goblin Town goblins. Or a better opportunity than 800 points Command the Battlefield. So
yes, and then retrieval.
Yeah. I pulled them out, and now I kind of regret I did, but now I'm committed.
But in a couple short weeks, you'll have another army finished to go on the shelf, even if you don't. No, I think that seems, or certainly speaking for myself, that is a pretty natural progression of like starting with picking models that you like the look of, or a theme where you're like, oh, I really love, Aragorn. Let's say I'm going to play Aragorn, and then you sort of get into the game, and I think the game is so well written and such a good game that it's hard to not play it a few times and be like, oh well, but if I just had this thing, and then you start actually like reading some of the other profiles and find something that, I mean, like I've played a lot of Isengard because I misread how Sorcerer's Blast worked once, and thought you could knock like ring rates off Felbeast just by Sorcerer's Blasting them. You can still do it, but just not quite as easily. But that led to converting up an Isengard army and painting them. So.
Yeah, the power gaming is strong in everybody. Yeah.
I mean, maybe not necessarily power gaming as much as I don't want to go to an event and lose 3 of my 3 games.
Yeah.
You're sort of like, I'm showing up to spend all day doing this thing. I don't want to be. I picked Rangers, let's say, because I really think Arathorn is cool and this could be a cool looking army. But also, I do have to spend 8 hours playing with it, and that's probably going to be 8 hours of maybe just getting crushed, and that's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I totally admire people who can do that, because there certainly are people that do that, and I think that
absolutely.
is great.
I wish I was more capable of just being like, it doesn't matter. It totally doesn't matter. It's just little toys, but I can do it for a little while, but then eventually I'm like, I just want to win something. All right, we're gonna move over. We're gonna take another look at some more pictures here. So continuing on the Arnor theme, I think, was this the first guy you converted up for your Arnor force you were working?
That is a captain converted from, what's his name, Irolas, I think.
Yeah. Yes. I can never remember. I always get that name mixed up.
It was a test piece, if you will, to see if it could work, to use models that are not originally from the Arnor line and put them into the aesthetics that are very well defined, or have been well defined since the Fall or Ruin of Arnor book that came out like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love. I mean, the GW models, as you said, have a very clear aesthetic, and I like them well enough. But I really like what you've done with all of your Arnor stuff, which it looks like an army that has just suffered defeat after defeat at the hands of the Witch King, and is like slowly withdrawing for its last stand. Like, you know, the patches on the cloak, and this guy's got the bedroll on his back, and he just looks like an absolutely rundown soldier, and it's so cool.
Even down to his chainmail coming off underneath his breastplate's a little raggedy. You know, he's seen some battles. It's been an arm, you know, worn down.
Yeah, that's what I always wondered. I mean, I absolutely love the GW models for Arnor, but I always thought, well, these guys don't look like they have been, like it's their last battle, and they have battled the Witch King and the forces of Angmar and these spooky ghosts and all these other guys for like the last 100 years. So that's what I tried to portray with this one.
Let's see. I love. There are so many of your projects that I love, and I shamelessly use them a lot for inspiration, and being like, oh, what was I remember seeing this thing. Let's go find that. And I can't wait to see more Arnor stuff, and especially if, who knows, it looks like there's going to be at least another new Forge World model. I assume it's Forge World model coming out here soon, so maybe there'll be even more for you to work with.
Yeah, I just yesterday I talked to another guy, to a friend of mine, and I thought maybe this wasn't the best time to start this Arnor army, because like in a couple of months everybody is going to, but then he rightly said that I will still have one that kind of puts that these models will still kind of stand out from whatever Forge World or Games Workshop are deciding to bring out. So we'll see. I'm excited. I would love to see a reimagining of like the Ruin of Arnor book, and I can't wait to see what else is in the pipeline.
I know it's an exciting time to be a Middle-earth fan again.
No, finally.
But speaking of converting models and like this guy, how do you go about doing it in I guess a broad sense? Obviously each one is going to be different, but did you think, okay, I think I'm going to build an Arnor captain. This is kind of like, I want him to be worn down. This is the kind of thing I'm looking for. Let me find a model. Or is it like you've got bits, essentially, you've got this box of raw material, and you're going through and sort of being like, oh, maybe this body and this bit. This guy obviously is slightly more, I think, more of a single, because most of his torso or most of his body is from the one kit.
The one previously, the Mounted Arnor Warrior, that's a lot of kit bashing.
Um, yeah, well, I think I start with an image in my head. So before I start, it's already finished in my head, so I can clearly see what I want in the end, what I want to have in the end. Same with like the display boards or something. I have this in my mind. It's already done, and the hard part is getting there from like nothing. And when I had the idea for this Arno project, I started browsing the GW range, and it's harder than you think to find models that don't have flowing capes and charging poses, and so it's harder than you think, and there's fewer of them as you might think. And so I just had a look at the models that were available, and because I wanted to go for this entire army in camp at ease, maybe before the next battle or after the last, and these stoic poses, and it's hard to find models for that, and Irulas just turned out to be perfect for that. And the other one that I wanted to use was Guards of the Citadel, or Citadel Guards from Minas Tirith for regular Arno warriors. And he was a very good fit because he also has this, I don't know how you call it, the long tunic.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
And the breastplate, and yeah, he looked like a good fit with the other models. So usually I just need to figure out how to get from the image in my head to the finished thing. Which sounds...
Yeah. How close do you feel like you get generally? Like, is it, 100% what you had in your head? Do you know?
I think I never get close enough, because every time I finish something, then I think maybe I could have done better. Or maybe maybe there's something else I could have done, but now I won't do it because I took so much time. But I've pulled apart conversions that were almost done, and I thought, no, this angle of the head or something didn't quite look right or didn't look quite natural, and then I pulled it apart and did something else. And I think with these I am very happy, and yeah, but I can't say if these are exactly what I had in mind, because there are some limitations to what you can do. If you are or were into like Warhammer stuff, I always loved the Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Demons, because they had like these awesome trims and decorations and little details that you cannot possibly put into a 32-28 millimeter model. And I always tried and thought about ways to do that, but you can't do it, and sometimes then you have to be happy with what you can do and maybe pull out some painting tricks, or just go with what you have. But I am very happy with these, and I think they match very closely the vision I had for what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I love all of these. They're so cool. I think it's one of the things I find very impressive about your work is the ability to not only spend the time and convert a large quantity of all of the models in each project or each army, but then also not rush through and I guess also have a very high standard of painting across them all. Whereas what I often find for myself, and one of the reasons I find it so impressive, is if I spend all the time converting the army, usually by the time I'm ready to paint, I'm like I'm just like tired of looking at these things, just rush through it, and then I look at them later and I'm like, I could have done a better job. Or it's, I get to the painting and I like rush through the converting because I enjoy the painting and I really want to paint this project, and then I look at them as I'm painting and I'm like, I could have done a better job with that conversion. Like that hobbit who's got his arm up like this, that's like, it's, that's not actually how bodies work, and he's got like weirdly two elbows somehow. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, painting is not a favorite part of mine, but I do enjoy it, and I think it's something. So I've been in this hobby like for 20 years. I think you guys have too, and
Yeah.
I just needed to figure out a way to paint quickly and still have it look good at arm's length. And I think this people scorn like the GW heavy metal type of paint jobs, but I think that's exactly how they did it. Like these small highlights that look good when you're at arm's length, but yeah. Oh, I don't know. Have I lost connection, or have you?
No, mine's saying it's trying to reconnect, but
Oh, yeah, I had that too.
I'm
Oh yeah.
still.
Okay. I don't know if I'm the problem. Maybe I am.
Well, it
No.
seems to be back. So yeah,
Okay,
no,
so I'll just go on.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, I think it is.
Okay.
It is an interesting thing. Like and whatever you've come up with to have models look great at whatever range. I mean, they look good. Obviously, I haven't ever seen any of your models in the flesh as or in the plastic, as they might say. But online and everything I've seen, not only are the conversions super cool, but the painting is fantastic.
Maybe you will. Are you coming to Artacon this year?
I'm not sure. I really one year I'd love to go. Is that coming up? That's in like the summer, right?
August,
isn't it?
Oh no,
August?
it's in August. Yeah.
That's a possibility. Are you planning to attend Artacon?
Well, I bought tickets, yes, but I totally have to wait and see how things are with the newborn around the corner, and he will be
Absolutely.
3 months old, I think, in August. So it's a clear 50-50.
Fair enough. That totally makes sense. Well, hopefully one day we can the stars align and we can throw some dice.
Yeah,
and
that would be cool.
I guess just look at super awesome models the whole time. All right, should we move on to some other, what have we got? Oh yes, Turgon. Love it. I have a good friend who we've been talking about doing like first age Lord of the Rings, and he like really wants a group of people to be like, let's make some first age characters, come up with some wacky rules, because he has a Smaug and he's like, I just want to rip its wings off and turn it into Glaurung, I think it is, and make a wingless worm. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
so this guy, I love this, and also because he's got Glamdring, which he is the sword he had, you know. So not only does it look super cool, but it fits. This guy's super great.
You have to be historically accurate if you're doing this.
Right, and that's true. You can't. Yeah. I think one of the cool things, I think on when you posted this, you sort of listed, or somebody asked, and it's listed some of the pieces you used, and this is another one that's like, you know, got bits from across the sphere, and it's just super impressive to be like, Helm Hammerhand's legs, Elrond's body, Gandalf's hand. There's a model there. And
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I got back into Lord of the Rings, because I have huge bits boxes for 30k, Horus Heresy, and 40k, and Warhammer Fantasy and stuff, and I thought about how it was going to be, because I remembered most of the Lord of the Rings kits being like single piece, or maybe you put a spear with an arm onto a model, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that you can actually chop up Lord of the Rings models just as easily as you could Warhammer models. They are just super tiny, and but I really enjoy, like, as I said, ripping things apart and putting them together in a new way. And this one was kind of a one-off. I'm sorry?
I said some would argue new and better ways.
Yeah, that's the intention or the goal, but I don't know. Maybe you don't always achieve that, but yeah, this was kind of a one-off because I had this Elrond body lying around because of the Turin conversion I did earlier, and I thought if there was ever a point at which I want to start first age elves, then maybe this would be a good go-to guy because he's literally just an elf with a sword, so he could be anything. He could be Elrond, he could be Thranduil, he could be, I don't know, Celeborn. So if you want to run this guy on the tabletop, he could be any elf.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, it was funny. One of the big events we have over here this year is the Nova Open is 1,000 points this year, and which is a lot. And I was trying to think of an army, and I was like, oh, I could do a Fall of Gondolin and have Turgon as Elrond and is it Ecthelion, as who and do him as Gil-galad and just basically do a bunch of elf lords and a bunch of elves, and you just eat through your 1,000 points really quickly. But then I was like, but then it's exactly what I was talking about earlier, where it becomes I spent the time to convert this, and now I've got like 3 weeks to go, and I just like slapped paint on, and that's disappointing. So, but I like that there's enough flexibility in what you can do with the modeling that you can be like, this guy can be, like if you rocked up and were like, this guy's my Gil-galad, I'd be like, that's fine, I don't care, he doesn't have a spear, he looks freaking awesome, let's go.
Yeah, I thought about maybe I always have this thing in my head where I go through everything and how a display board could look for these guys and what I want to do with them, and I had thought about like putting a big Balrog like splashing into the fountain on a display board for this, and have maybe Ecthelion like plunging the sword into this, but I didn't go through with it because I think I didn't fancy paying for a Balrog just to put him on a display board. But, we'll see. Maybe it's going to happen someday. Yeah, well,
right.
We'll see.
It's in the back of the mind, so it'll work its way out sometime.
Yeah, but it's a concept. This counts as concept is a thing that I only knew from like 40k, 30k. Like, if you build a cool character, then you could say like, this is my X, Y, Z, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that like the Lord of the Rings community is kind of open for this. If you tell them what's what, and maybe you build a cool character from the books that they know, and you're not just like, this Captain of Numenor is actually Aragorn or something like this. But if there's a project and a bit of love, then I really enjoy seeing people come up with their own characters or their own lore for things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think as well. For myself, there are plenty of Lord of the Rings models I love, and a lot of them I have a lot of nostalgia around. But there are definitely a chunk of them that that are showing their age. We'll put it nicely. So to take those, convert them, and then if you're doing that, like I love the idea of doing a Dol Amroth army and do it as the Knights of the Green Hills or whatever it is, and having all those characters, and I think that would be super cool. I think before we move into the next picture, you kind of touched on this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you prefer converting and sculpting or the painting part of it? I have a suspicion after our conversation thus far, but
I think I enjoy the building part much more, but my hobby kind of seems to go like in phases. Like I have a painting phase and I have a building phase. Sometimes I just build and paint. Sometimes I just build and convert stuff for months, and then I just paint for months. So it's I can't really say what I definitely spent more time converting, I think. But I have phases where I really enjoy painting as well, because sometimes it's very fulfilling to get these models that you spend so much time on already ready for the tabletop. So
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. All right. All right. Shall we move on? What else have we got? A favorite of mine. There's a word that I can't think of right now. They hold a special spot in my heart. The three trolls, and one of your more simple conversions, but I do love the change to is it Tom? Yeah,
He's
with
got
the
the snotty
hold.
handkerchief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this box sitting around, and it was because of you guys that I pulled them out. And there was actually a Chaos and Ada event, 400 points, when I pulled these out, and I thought, yeah, that's like with the Goblin Town, it's the perfect opportunity to paint these three models and have them on my shelf painted, and maybe even have an enjoyable time playing with them, because these guys are definitely victims of competitive list building, and they definitely not being competitive. And so I
Yeah.
pulled them out, I built cool things for them, and I wanted to do at least a little conversion with these, and yeah, now they sit unpainted on my desk because I never got round to going to that event. And now I'm waiting for the
Yeah.
next 400 points Chaos and Ada event.
Right. I'm waiting for. I have a box sitting in my closet right over there, and I'm like, one day somebody will run the perfect event, and I will
Yeah.
go. I'll lose every game, but it will be a blast. I love the trolls. So this was super cool.
Yeah.
All right, what have we got coming up next? Oh yeah, yeah. These
These are my
guys. So
favorites, I think. They're the Corsairs.
yeah, yeah, and these are your counts as Reavers. Is that the for your that Corsair with the queen and all her cats?
Yeah, the slide hasn't changed for me yet, so I can't quite see what
Ah,
I should be looking at. But
it's the
yes, yeah.
well
Okay.
while
Now we have it. Yeah.
okay, excellent.
Yeah, that was one thing. I think that was like Queen Beruthiel is just an offhand mention, like in Tolkien's works, like in the appendices. If you dig really deep, like her name comes up once, like I think. Um, but I've always really enjoyed this, and I think the Black Numenorians are something that GW hasn't delved deeply enough into. And I know the original models are very divisive. I think I think people love them or people hate them. I don't think there's an in between. And I really like them. And I think there should be more poses, or maybe an entire army made of them. But there isn't, so I went and made one. And these guys, yeah, I didn't. These are Morgul Stalkers, and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use the orc heads, obviously, because they're supposed to be men, and the Black Numnorian heads didn't really fit these because they were supposed to be like more sneaky cultist kind of guys, and these are heads from Blood Bowl Wood Elves, which I thought were kind
Okay.
of fine for these,
Kidding.
because the metal models are a bit bigger usually than the plastics, so these Warhammer 32mm bits tend to fit a bit better than with
Yeah,
GW plastics or Lord of the Rings plastics. And yeah, I needed to Reavers, and these seemed to me like the perfect stand-ins to be Corsair Reavers.
Yeah, no, I do. I absolutely love those, especially the two heads on the left with the like intricate masks and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's something about them that they look like they would they fit very well, and I love the idea. So these guys are
Yeah, I thought of
uh,
the Black Numnorians or these assassins, especially like kind of a mix. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are these I can't quite remember the name. These harpy guys that wear gold masks and are after Daenerys and her guys.
Oh, yeah.
I think later on in
Yeah, yeah.
the seasons, and I always thought that Black Numenorians would kind of be like a middle ground between these sneaky assassin type guys and like Slanesh cultists from Warhammer or Age of Sigmar. So like these hedonistic, self-indulgent, arrogant persons, and I thought this, the look would go well for them, and would not be too much too out there from what GW and Peter Jackson imagined for Middle Earth stuff.
No, yeah, I think it's great, and I think that's another interesting thing about like what we were talking about earlier with the counts as armies. Given that there's also so many 3D printed or 3D sculpted and like third party, whatever large orcs of the north, whatever their off-brands names are. I think it sort of it opens the door to allow you to do more of that stuff where you're like, well, you 3D printed this whole army and have to tell me what each thing is. The difference is I have converted this whole army and have to, so I think that's one of the nice things that does bring to the community is more of the ability to be like, you're not the only one playing with non-standard models. There are so many, or at least here, I don't know about your scene, but there's quite a lot of like.
Yeah, over here.
So
as
what
well.
is this guy? Yeah.
But it's kind of a double-edged sword because I have been asked like, oh, that's a cool model. Where can I find the STL? And I'm like, yeah, well, well, you can't. And in some ways, that's very cool because I then tell them no, it's all converted, and then they have they can see that a lot of work went into this. But they, if you happen to see a model that didn't look like a GW model like 10 years ago, you would automatically assume that it was converted or something. Or that a lot of work went into this, and now if someone puts out a cool 3D file, then like everybody can print it and play with it. So it took away a bit of my special snowflake moments, but then I think it's cool that these possibilities exist nowadays.
It is an interesting thing because of the prevalence of 3D printed models, and because the sort of so many other miniature games have so many awesome models that I feel like a lot of the time people don't really necessarily know. Like, you have to have somebody who's also really into the hobby you don't have to, and not all the time, but quite often if you're not playing somebody who's like into the hobby, they're not necessarily going to realize that isn't just a model from a box or isn't a 3D print, that they have to be like, oh man, I see that you, and then that's like a really nice feeling. But it is, as you were saying, it is a funny thing where like, like I have my Helm's Guard army where I sculpted a bunch of fur on the cloaks of all the Rohan dudes.
Definitely.
I think that sort of a lot of people just look at it and they're like, yeah, those are Rohan warriors. And I'm like, literally everyone's been changed, and I'm not saying that like I need to be recognized, but it is an interesting thing that like you can put so much work in, and sometimes people can just sort of like not take that in the same way.
Yeah.
Here's
I think I can tell you also that the most or the worst moment after converting a lot of models is when you have to put spray primer on them. Because when you have an army full of converted models, like you can see the green stuff, the plastic card, the different bits, like on this one, like they are obviously from different kits, and then you put black primer on them, and then all the work is like it's gone, and you can't even tell that they are from different kits. And I have joked about like, can I bring this army like unpainted, because so that you can see how much work went into this, but obviously that's not an option. And when you have painted your things, then it's clear to see that they are maybe not the standard models, but it is a frustrating moment when your army is all black sitting in front of you, and all the work is unrecognizable.
They do look better unprimed than primed, don't they? It's so funny.
Yeah.
conversions.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it's easy advertising that you're like, this is a conversion. Yeah, it is a funny thing. I love this. I, out of your conversions, a simpler one, this betrayer, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the betrayer, and I love the use of that the cruel boy shaman's little pot that he's like pouring the poison out onto his sword. I think that's super cool, and I think that's an interesting thing. And one of the points I was going to make was that while I say it's a simpler of your conversions, the like concept and imagery behind it is like that's the kind of thing that somebody else could look at and be like, oh, it's a head swap, a weapon, a little bit of sculpting, but it's so much easier to see that, think that after somebody else has already come up with the idea. And you're like, I'm like, oh, I could reproduce that, but I'm like, I definitely would not have seen these pieces, put them together in this way, So I think that's a lovely example of a really, really cool concept that's like beautifully executed.
Yeah, thanks. And I think this is a good example for this could be a 3D print. Like someone could like envision this and put it out as a file and have like, Ring Wraith from the south and put it out there for people to print. Because it is kind of simple and there are a lot of different parts involved. And it is, I have to say, I think it's on the edge of being too much, because like this obvious like poison pouring imagery and so is not what GW had in mind for their models. I think they verge on the more historical side of things. And this is a bit more in your face. Like this guy is obviously handling poisons because he is the poison guy. But I think it's a good one. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
You can see him on a display board though, like preparing the army for battle. Like, okay, here we go. We've got some extra special poison for the Haradrim force that I've joined. This extra evil poison. Pour it on all the weapons.
Yeah, come here, get your dose. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I was like, I love the betrayer, and this model's super cool. And I was like, if I had this betrayer, I would use the betrayer all the time. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, that would be the trouble with all of these models. I'm like, but I just want to constantly only use this guy because it's so cool. But like when they're all super cool and converted, you got the pick.
Yeah. And can I tell you something? This guy, I don't know. Did you note down when this was done? I think it's like it has to be more than a year, like 1.5 years maybe. This guy, and he's sitting like this exactly on my shelf because I haven't used him in a game since. Because I was like, okay, this worked. Yeah. This one worked. Now it's done. He can sit there, and let's see when we will get back to Harad.
Yeah.
But sometimes things just need to be out of the system. Like I have random ideas on random days, and then I sit down and do something, and then I'm like, yeah, this worked, perfect. Now set it aside.
Yeah. No, that's that is a funny thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand or have the same feeling, but like I can be working on something. For me it's usually more with painting. If I'm trying to paint something, trying to finish a project, and I was working on a model's base last night, and I just couldn't get it to look good. And I just kept on going for like hours longer than I should have, because I knew if I was like, it's late, I should go to bed, then I'd just be like lying there and my mind would be going like, well, what if I tried this thing? What if I did this thing? And so I totally understand that, like, I have this, I got to get it out of me. Otherwise it's gonna, it's this like bug. It's funny.
Yeah, I think the mental like gymnastics, I don't know how you'd call that, is a big part, because you can. I think it's fantastic that you can sit literally anywhere and think about this hobby, like what's my next list going to be, like what points cost was this guy, what parts do I need to make this conversion, and I think it's a brilliant thing, this hobby in its entirety, because there are so many aspects that you can focus on or do whilst doing something entirely different, or maybe when you're away from your models, you can still think about what conversion you might come up with next.
Yeah. All right. So I think we'll keep going through these pictures, because then we have some other questions we can ask that will sort of be a more not necessarily tied to pictures. So
I can be here all day. Yeah.
Right. Here's another shot of this guy, of this awesome betrayer.
That's a model that would almost make me want to not take the horse. Like the mounted version you did is great, but the foot model is so much cooler.
Yeah, true. Maybe you can put him on a like on a fell beast with pouring the acid over a sword, sure, but maybe that's a bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah, Betrayer on a fell beast for like 200 points. It's a bit steep.
Yeah, something like that. But so we obviously we've talked a lot about your converting of models, and haven't really touched on that you also make awesome display boards. And I think this is such a great example of a really, really cool idea and concept that sort of like is part of the narrative of the army, but is pulled off really well, which is, of course, if you're a listener, because we have many of those still, is a really, really cool display board for the assault on Lothlorien, with a elven gazebo shattered, and these trees with what are their platforms? I think they have a special name that I can't think of, but it looks like the rest of the woods is aflame. So there were cast like shadows and stuff. I love this. This is super cool.
This whole display board thing, I don't know why or when it started. I think when I wanted to go to my first event, and I knew there was like a best painted or best army prize, and I was like, there's no way that I'm going to win this tournament, like my first event ever. But maybe I can take home some award for hobbying too hard. And then I also needed to come up with a way to store my armies in a display case. Like Ben, I think I have the same IKEA displays that you have behind you. I think I have 3 or 4 of those. And the armies just look much better when they are on a display board. Because, as you said, it ties them to like an environment, and it makes them just fit in much better and more cohesive. And I really enjoy making these, and it's also fun to have this this frame. Like you can only have like 40 centimeters by 30 centimeters, because that's those are the measurements for your what do you call this? For your display. And how do I get like a scene into this limited space that fits the army? And that's a really fun way of giving something extra to the models that you made.
Yeah, and I like you sort of have a bunch of really cool display boards. There might in fact be another one coming up next, but I like that you sort of have a more generic one as well. That's like you've got the sort of cliffs in the background and just sort of some greenery and stuff. That I don't know if you built it for the Beornings, but you had some Beornings on there, and I think that's a super cool idea as well. It's sort of just that one I
actually made as a backdrop for taking photos. So not for one special army, just for painted stuff. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I think there's a trend like of photographing models like in a super dark space, and I've seen lots of photos on Instagram and on Facebook where you can't even make out the army or the models because the pictures are so dark. And I've always enjoyed photos of models like in their natural surroundings. and for that I think it's good to have something that you can that you can take photos in front of.
Yeah. And speaking of, continuing to speak of display boards, I love this one, Isengard. I love a good Isengard and some Dunlendings, and the burning house and the
Westfold
houses.
Yeah,
it's super nice.
Yeah, it was a fun experiment to like do these. I thought it was very very involved when I first saw someone like have a burning house on their table, and then I found out that you can buy flickering tea lights from literally anywhere, and Amazon and I don't know where else. And so you just take one of those and put like some cotton wool around it, and it's perfect. Maybe some black spray to give it like a smoky appearance, and then you're done. And I think it adds so much value that you can't express through the models themselves, because with Warhammer you have like big tanks and like amazing monsters and where you can put extra stuff on the bases, but with Lord of the Rings you only have these 25 millimeters and 40 millimeter bases, and you don't have the option to put a lot of stuff or extra storytelling on those.
Yeah, and I again, it just sort of it's in the same way as the Assault on Lothlorien board. It sells the narrative of this is a horde of Dunlendings coming in to burn the Westfold, perhaps, or whatever Rohan village. And I think that's as well. I think like we were talking about previously, where people, if they don't necessarily know the models in super detail, they might assume it's 3D printed, or they might not know the level that you've gone to do the conversions. But if you have this display board that's got a flickering flaming house, it doesn't matter whether they're a fantastic hobbyist or not. It like moths to a flame, people will be drawn to burning Rohan houses, I think. So
yeah, that's great.
So at the very least, they'll come over and look at your like, oh man, this is so cool. So.
And the display board thing, I don't. Not many people were into it. Like when I got back into this Lord of the Rings hobby, but I think it's really taken off because there's a lot of representation online. I think Charles from Into the West does a lot of display board building, and I've seen more and more people go that extra mile to make cool display boards, because it's just a fun way of doing something more for the army, and I really enjoy looking at other people's stuff as well.
Yeah. I always find that with display boards, it's usually the thing I get to last in the project. If I'm like, oh, I'm going to this event, get the army converted or built, painted, and I'm like, I'd love to do a display board, and it usually is like, it's 2 days beforehand, and just sort of, ends up a lot of corners get cut. There's a lot of like, I should have waited longer for that display. So I always find people who do those boards really impressive, because it's very clearly like the correct amount of time has been taken to produce something really nice.
And sometimes it's not the worst idea to start with the display board, because then you can also take the photos of finished models like in front of the background that they are supposed to fit in, right? So or the surroundings they're supposed to be in. And I usually don't do this, but I have enjoyed it very much the 1 or 2 times that I have managed to, because it looks much better when you photograph your models on your display board than like this on a black background.
I do love this. I do love this Girion, because the Games Workshop model it's all right. Yeah, it's fine, but I think this is super cool.
Doesn't the Games Workshop model not have a bow?
No, I don't think he does.
It doesn't have anything, looking. I think. It's just looking. And I think this was the first model that I made when I got back into MESBG, because I liked the Dale guys, and I found it so weird that they have this leader with an extra special bow and special rule, and the guy doesn't have a bow.
Yeah.
And so I just hacked apart one Dale warrior, and gifted his bow and arrows to his captain.
To his lord, I like it. No, it is. It's again. It's like it's very well executed, and I think it makes the model more interesting. And like, you know, like I sort of like you're talking about with your Arnor stuff, wanting them to all be like at rest. You know, not in like charging forwards poses. And I think that's one of the cool things to do with models if you're really into whatever character is to changing it's the pose it's at. Like I love the new Gothmog, let's say, that Games Workshop released, but the like one on Warg, he's sort of sitting there, and I think the idea of doing Gothmog on his Warg, like charging forwards, is, you know, I would do the classic one as well, but it's, you know, it's just sort of a subtle change or a major change to a pose to tell a different part of the character's story. And I really think that with both the Arnor and this guy as well, that you really like sort of sell that and show a different side of a character, which is very cool.
Yeah, cheers. And I think in the end it comes down to how confident you are with like figuring out the right bits to use, or how confident you are with green stuff sculpting, because sometimes you have to get rid of so much on a model. Like with this one, like I hacked off both arms and some of the torso, and then you're at the stage where you have like a model totally ruined, and then you have to have the confidence that you can bring it back up to something that looks good. And yeah, that's that will depend on how confident you are with your conversion skills, because for some people like a head swap is too much because they don't fancy hacking the head of one of their favorite models. But I think converting with everything is going to be better with practicing a lot.
Do you have any advice for someone starting out converting? Like, you know, I would like to get better at using green stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to get better at using green stuff if I don't start trying to use green stuff. But like, where do I start? Obviously, some things are much harder than others. Is it easier to do cloaks? Is it easier to do hair? You know, chainmail seems like a real pain as an experienced person. I'm like, I'm going to stay away from that. Do you have any advice to someone starting out who just like, I'm going to start?
I still struggle with chainmail, for example. I think that one is, if you don't do it like this, like you can see on this Gyrion, like it's literally just that they just punched holes into the model. But if you have like newer Forge World sculpts, like you can actually see each ring of the chainmail interlocking with the next. But if you're fine with this level, then I think you can do it very easily. But I don't know a good place to start. I think weapon swaps and head swaps are the easiest, because there's very little green stuff work required most of the time, because if you want to have a Minas Tirith captain, then you can just chop a head off and maybe put on a Knight of Dol Amroth head, like the foot guys. They have some cool unhelmeted heads that go very well for every human model. And I think head swaps, weapon swaps are perhaps the easiest, and then maybe do little pouches or maybe a backpack, or I think battle companies would be a good start to try out conversion skills, because you can individualize your models without having to do cloaks for an entire army or something. You can just do one guy and maybe he is carrying like a flask or a backpack or like a bit of rope, or maybe he has fancy hair or something. So I think experimenting on single models really is the way to go. And after that, I can't really say what is more difficult than other things because it's all about practice. If you do nothing but cloaks, then you will have your cloak game down in like a couple of weeks or months. But I wasn't really into making green stuff cloaks because I always thought it was really hard. And then like just a few months ago, I started making some for different models, and I figured out, if you do it like this, and then you hold it like this, and then you push your sculpting tools in like this, then you can make believable like fabric folds and something like that. So I think it's about starting with like little bits and bobs and then work your way up from there.
Cool. Awesome.
And if something doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Then you try again, because I've had plenty of models, as I said, that I ripped apart or that I took the green stuff part back out of because I wasn't happy with it and tried again. If you're willing to do that, and if you're willing to learn more and to recognize your failings, if you will, then you can just go ahead and enjoy the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing. I had one of the first events we did, I had an aha moment seeing somebody's awesome spider army they'd done, and they'd converted it all, and it was like wildly cool. And then I was looking through some of the pictures he posted of stuff, and I was just like, oh man, I really wish I could sculpt like that. And I remember thinking to myself, like, but at some point in time, this person couldn't sculpt and put the practice in and learned to do it. And I think that's with all of this stuff, it's you've got to try it, and you've got to practice before you can become good, and you've got to go through that awkward phase of like, this stuff. I look back at some of my earlier attempts at sculpting, I'm like, yeah, this isn't great, but it's painted and it's good enough for being on the table, kind of thing. And then through that, you get to a point where you can like do a big giant central model, and you're not just putting little things on. So
yeah, I think people underestimate how much time practicing actually takes. Because when I talk to people and they say, I tried sculpting with green stuff like once and it didn't go the way I wanted, and then I like threw it away, then I'm like, yeah, but I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and like I have started converting like from the very beginning. When I started out, I bought a couple of White Dwarf magazines, and in the White Dwarf magazines there was always cool Warhammer conversions, and I was like, oh wow, how do people actually get this or get to this point that their miniatures look different? And I can clearly remember that I got a Grey Company, a Dunedain Ranger, and I wanted to make a mold of it, and I wanted to make my own, and then I think I made a wax mold of the Ranger, and then poured. I can't quite remember, but I poured wax into the mold, so I had a little wax Ranger of Gondor, and it had zero detail, but I was so proud because it did work, and it wasn't quite how I wanted it to look, but it did work. And so these little, if you just accumulate hundreds of these little experiences, then you grow as a hobbyist and as a modeler. And yeah, I still find it. I always find it fascinating when I look at like a Warrior Goblin or a Minas Tirith Warrior from like 22 years ago, and I was like, it looks horrible, but I was happy with it at the time when I painted it, and I was like, here, look what I've done. And I think it's very fascinating. Like you can be happy with everything that you do at the point that you're doing it, and then look back at it 10 years later and see, oh, I have improved so much by practicing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the fun things about I started my painting Instagram. And that's one of the things that's been the most fun about it, is I can look back from like, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago and be, look at the stuff that you were posting pictures of, and there might not, I'm sure I have the models, but they're buried in a box, but it's just easy to be like, oh, I remember what it was like painting that, and thinking, being really pleased with it, and looking at it now, and I'm like, oh, that's totally fine, but oh my god, I've like progressed so far, or all of this stuff. So it's a neat way to sort of have a visual diary of hobby.
Definitely. And then the muscle memory, I think, is what you call it in sports or something else. Then comes over time.
Yeah. Oh man, so I don't know if the slides have changed for you guys, but we've got this this awesome Witch King on Fellbeast conversion up.
This guy.
Yeah, I do too.
Using the Twilight Ring, I think that's super cool. This is, I think your Angmar army is an army that I would be happy to lose to, because at the very least it looks absolutely beautiful. And even if it's going to paralyze all of my fun big heroes, it would be a pleasure to look at while it was doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, you say that, but we had a over 1,075 point event last November, and I took the Witch King, Gulliver, and 5 Barrow Whites, I think, to that event, and people were not happy, but yeah. It was fun, yeah, for me at least, yeah. All right, yeah.
I mean,
the slide still hasn't changed for me, but I very much enjoyed working on that Witch King. But now, as I said, now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I could have done better, or maybe I could have changed this and that, but I'm obviously not going to now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that must have taken some serious, because that's the Corpse Ripper Vulture or whatever from the Cruel Boys range as well, and that must have taken some serious work to cut down all the feathers and stuff on its neck, or on
definitely.
Bits of it.
Yeah, and then it's about trying to get there, get to the image that you have in your head, because you have to be confident or insane enough to just hack apart all of the things that you think are not needed or will not be needed, and then build things back up with green stuff.
Yeah, and you go through that. It's you just, like many things in life, you go through that phase of you have to make it sort of worse before it gets better, and just to have the confidence to keep going and not be like, oh my god, I've ruined this model and I'm just gonna put it to the side and this was a massive mistake. To have the confidence to know that the end product, if I can just get through this stage, will look really cool.
Yeah, and this one would have been an expensive mistake.
Yeah. Yes, that is the other thing, right? Yeah. No, very it's very cool. So I have pulled up. I'm assuming the slides are still not changing for you. I wonder if that's my internet.
Now I can actually see the Witch King, but I don't know if you have moved on.
We pulled up more of your first age elves over here. But we can we'll give it a minute to catch up, because we can go back to some of these questions I have written down.
Yeah, sure.
Is there an army or a model that you haven't done or haven't started working on that you'd be really excited to? That there's one that's in the back of your mind that you're like, oh yes, when I've finished my 60-something goblins, I'm really looking forward to jumping into doing this thing.
Yeah, I'm having a Candish army down in the pipeline that I would like to take to an event in July. So I don't know if that's going to work out, but I think there are so many different aspects of the MESBG range and so many cool models that I would, if I had unlimited time, like just paint and work on all of them. But yeah, I would really like to do like a Rangers army, like as you said with Arathorn, or maybe a Grey Company army. But I think I'm mainly put off by not really being able to play this army and have it compete in an event. Yeah, it's which is really sad, but yeah, I think some army ideas aren't just as enjoyable as the models that you would be working on for them. What else?
Yeah, that's one of the ones I've joked about, doing a Ranger army and counting them as Beornings and just never transforming the bears.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
this is my
yeah.
Halberad, this is my Arathorn, whatever. I've just, because they are, especially, that's such an easy comparison, I think, is of the Beornings to the Rangers, and the Rangers are just a little bit of a miss.
Yeah,
Still
that's true.
5-5.
Yeah, or just fight 5, maybe more cheaper horses like that. I would really love to do like a mounted ranger force, but when you have Rivendell Knights for 21 points, they are just, I don't know how GW came up with the points and stats for the Rangers of the North.
Yeah.
What else? Is there something else? Well, I can show you a Gondor Calls for Ale exclusive, if you will.
Ooh, absolutely. See it.
So
big boy.
I have all of the parts cleaned up, but I of course wanted to do something for the big boy, but I have no idea when I will get to that. So
for those of you listening, Hawk was showing off his Smaug box.
Yeah,
something very cool.
Yeah,
that's
one of the more unreasonable impulse buys, where I earlier talked about not wanting to put a Balrog on a display board, and then jumping in and pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, that's I always think of Smaug, makes me think it's very, very equivalent to like a Titan for Warhammer, like 40k or 30k, where it's I actually think you're more likely to use Smaug in a game of Lord of the Rings, or I would be more likely to use Smaug than I would a Titan. But it's like, it's the big central piece of the range, right? You know, it's like it's I every time we go to an event that Games Workshop's at, that they're like, you know, we've come to this convention and we've got a thing, they usually have 1 or 2 Smaugs on the shelf, and every single time I'm like, is this the time? And
some people convinced me, and I used that argument on myself, that it is an investment. So if you buy this now, you can always resell for the exact same price that it is now, because Smaug has become so much more expensive over the past few years. And he probably will be, like, when GW raises prices next. I don't know if how often they do it, like every year, twice a year, I don't know. Then there will be a time when you can just resell them if you don't use them. Maybe we'll see. I actually bought him because I had planned to use him in this tournament that I talked earlier, where I'm bringing 500 points of Thror and Thror's army, and then for 800 points I thought about bringing Smaug and maybe like a Dol Guldur Witch King for good measure, but having like a little board where Smaug is like breaking through the gates of Erebor, and then I found out there will be no best army award or so. Then I threw that entire idea in the bin.
Fair enough.
I'm not doing that if I'm not getting anything out of it.
Right? I totally get it.
No, that is all in jest, of course. But the idea is very much alive, and I'm just now. I just don't have an excuse to do it right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for when you get that excuse, because it's always cool to see those massive models.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of years when my. I'm sorry.
I don't think I've ever seen a finished Smaug in person.
No, I haven't either, and I was very surprised. I've seen people talk about how big this model is, and then I had like these huge wings in my head, and I was like, oh, maybe we can't do a lot of converting on this one.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where you're like drilling into it with like a real drill and like
with a real drill,
yeah, and putting like coat hangers for pins and stuff.
Yeah. That's all down the line. Maybe in a couple of years when my son is old enough to join in, and then it would be a cool project to do. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. Any has the slide changed over? We're looking at or are we still looking at the Witch King for you?
I am still looking at a Witch King, but I know most of my models, so if you tell me what I should be looking at, then I can probably give you something.
Yeah, so I've got the I should have written their names down, but some more of your first age elves. I think was it.
Oh yeah, there they are.
We looked at Turgon. So is it Turin? And
Turin, yeah.
With the yeah. Out of it looks like we've got like a Legolas and
Legolas on Eomer's horse.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. I was so deep into Silmarillion lore, I could tell you everything, but now I have forgotten his name as well. Let's have a quick look. Oh, Beleg. Yeah, that's right. So, the elves, or Turin's best mate is Beleg, who is supposed to be like the best elf warrior that's ever lived. And his name, I think, literally translates to strong bow, and he's always pictured with a bow, and I thought it was a really cool way of bringing this first age army to life, and I did play Turin as Bard and Beleg as Legolas in a Survivors of Lake Town army. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, I think I don't know if we have any pictures there. Oh, so I've just moved over, and it's your Baron out of a Bjorning. Right, I think that's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's Baron.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, I had this. I went through a first age Silmarillion phase, like mid last year, and a little out of the box thinking and model making.
Yeah, you made that like little display with who? What's the hound? Yeah, it's Huor, right? The hound and and Baron and Luthien. I don't know if there's a picture. If we put a picture on the slide, but it's super cool. If you're listening to this or you're viewing this and looking at these pictures, definitely we'll put a link in the description of these episodes to your Instagram, and viewers, listeners, whoever, if you're not following or haven't checked it out, definitely worth a gander, as they say, or as I say. I don't many people say that.
I have to give a bit of credit to I can't quite remember. Was it? I think you mentioned that original orc on your show as well, and I think it was him that did an awesome Boromir conversion out of this madril, this plastic madril.
Yes.
And he had him blowing his horn like this Turin does, and I didn't want to do a Boromir, but I then had the idea of making a Turin blowing his horn, and So credit goes to him for using that plastic model as something else.
Yeah, I did. I love that. That's an army that, like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that would be a neat idea to do. You know, the brothers as younger men, as the sort of Boromir and his ranger stuff.
Now I'm going to
Looks
check
like
to not say something wrong, but his is one of those profiles, as you mentioned, Sam, that I go to, and I have like every single post that he does, I have like saved for reference, as you call it, because everything he does, I'm like, oh yeah, that's very clever. I need to do that one day.
yeah.
Orcs,
That's such a cool.
Eastlings, Fellowship, like Helm's Deep, and I love social media for everything that's wrong with the concept, but I love this for inspiration. I think it's invaluable.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. I think that's like one of the greatest things about Instagram and whatever is being able to see, because, like, you know, if it hadn't been for Instagram, I would never have seen any of your awesome models. And I was saying before we started recording this that I don't know how many years I've been following your account, but it was you know, Horus Heresy stuff when I was big into that was I saw this super cool Corax, and I was like, oh man, whoever's this account, and then you start going through, and it's just like, this is all really awesome. So social media, as you said, not the best thing for the world, but it's pretty nice for toys.
I'm now having a quick look through Instagram because I didn't find the Boromir model on his profile, so maybe it wasn't him, but there are some other converters as well that I really like the work of, but I've now shouted him out, so for that, so definitely check that guy out.
Yeah,
yeah, it's super cool. So just sort of flip through some of the last few pictures, and now sitting on a nice Gondor Calls for Ale logo. So it was really difficult putting together this slide. Well, Ben actually put together the slide. I saved some images to a collection, but you know, because it was just like every post I was like, oh, that's a cool one. You know, it's just like so much really, really great stuff, and I have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy seeing all of your stuff, and I'm super excited to see some more things in the future.
Yeah, thanks. There definitely will be more things. I don't know. I'm very curious to find out how much hobby time a newborn is taking up, but I will do my best to keep on putting things out, because this hobby is like such a stress relief or something. So this retreat from everyday life, and I couldn't go totally without it, I don't think. So there will be more in the future.
Excellent. Good. You've now committed. I don't know if you realize it's legally obligated to continue making cool Lord of the Rings stuff, because you said it here. That's how it works.
Okay. Yeah. That works for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you've got a reason to tell everyone, like, I'm sorry, Gondor Calls for Ale says that I have to do this thing.
Officially sponsored now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know. We'll have to send you some dice.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. Surely.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do that off air, so we're not making you tell everyone your address and stuff. I think that covers talking through the slides, and most of the questions have been answered that needed to be so. Ben, do you have anything else you wanna chip in here towards, or should we start wrapping up?
Coming up close to the end of the episode, I think, Sam.
Yeah. This has been great. I mean, as you said earlier, I could talk about toys all day and all the time. So if
Definitely.
You're up for it, perhaps we'll have to have you on in the future once you're life has evolved and then settled, we could have a part 2 to this, because there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah, I'd certainly be up for it.
But I think for now, unless there's anything you would like to say that you feel we missed, or any more shout outs you'd like to give, I think we can probably start wrapping it up.
I don't really. All I can say is if you happen to be in northern Germany, then go to events, go to the tabletop club Kiel, and get some games in. And yeah, if you're looking at converting models, then just dive right in and try and fail and try again, and then you'll be on the right path.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Perfect. Well, all right. I guess there's not much. I do know what day this comes out. It's like there's no point in talking about where we can find people next, Ben. But do you know? This will be. I think I said it will be the 17th of May. So
17th of May. So we will have gone to the Richmond Open at this point. So those episodes will be coming out in the future. And just this coming weekend, we will be attending Big Trouble in Little Dale.
Yeah.
I will be, at least. Sam may not make it again. So those episodes will be forthcoming. And events past that, Sam, in the future, I am not sure. I think you will be going to Bilbo's Birthday Bash.
Yes, I have signed up for Bilbo's Birthday Bash, a tournament that we've signed up for twice, attended once because we drove to the wrong store. I now know where it's located, so I plan to be there, and that is the 8th and 9th of June. And then, alas, life gets very busy for a little while, and the only other thing I think we have on the calendar is the Nova Open over Labor Day weekend, which I don't know when that is.
End of August, beginning
End of August, yes. Something like that. Yeah, so a very spottily done where we'll be. But as is the whole show. So we really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Something a little bit different. I guess we will do our plug now, where we want to say thank you to the Baron of Dice for being our official sponsor. We were talking just moments ago about some super cool Gondor Calls for Ale dice. They are, of course, have beautiful square corners. They're hand-swirled resin, guaranteed to roll you 6s unless you're playing me, and then it's nothing but 1s, I'm afraid. And as I said, he sponsors us, so if you want to check the link in the description of this episode, and we have a promo code where you can go get a nice discount on that. So other things to check out are, of course, the Temple Forge on Instagram, because that's what this... Or the Forge... Yes, the Forge Temple. I always do that backwards on Instagram. That's embarrassing. Yes. With the magic of editing, maybe I'll make that more smooth, but probably not. But yes, definitely worth checking out, because that is, of course, what this whole episode has been about. So until next time, listeners and viewers, thank you, and we'll be back in 2 short weeks. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no microbubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.